Hi, my name is Oliver. I'm 28 years old. People see my smile and think it's effortless, but behind it lies a story of being left out and finding my own way to shine. When my sister announced her wedding, a $750,000 fairy tale event, I was happy for her. At least, until I found out everyone in the family was invited, except me. When I asked my mom why, she said coldly, "You'd ruin her perfect day." I just smiled and replied, "Fair enough." But a week later, while they were still basking in the glow of their perfect day, my wedding photos hit the internet. A Paris ceremony, Eiffel Tower in the background, a dress more beautiful than any they'd seen. And within hours my photos went viral. My phone lit up with messages from relatives, friends, even my mom. But this time, I didn't respond. Because while they excluded me from their celebration, I created my own one the whole world got to see. Tell me in the comments where you're watching from. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe, because the next story I share will remind you sometimes the best revenge is simply living beautifully. I still remember the exact moment I found out. It was a quiet Thursday evening, the kind where nothing dramatic ever happens. I had just finished a long day at my design studio and was curled up on my couch with a cup of tea. Out of habit, I opened my phone to scroll through social media. That's when I saw it. A glowing post at the top of my feed. Claire and Matthew's wedding countdown, 30 days to go. My sister's smiling face filled the screen, wrapped in white lace, surrounded by family, friends, and comments filled with hearts and congratulations. I blinked twice, then scrolled down. There were my parents laughing, holding champagne glasses, my cousins, uncles, and even my old high school friends all tagged. Everyone, except me. My stomach twisted. Maybe it was a mistake. Maybe the post wasn't public. I searched through my messages, my emails, nothing. No invitation, no mention, not even a simple text from my mother. I tried to laugh it off at first. Maybe Claire just forgot to tell me. Maybe there was some kind of misunderstanding. But deep down I already knew the truth. Later that evening, I called my mother. She picked up on the third ring, her tone bright but stiff. "Olivia, how are you?" she asked. I swallowed hard. "I'm fine, Mom. I just saw Claire's wedding post online." There was a short silence, then the sound of her clearing her throat. "Yes, it's been such a busy time," she said carefully. I took a breath. I didn't get an invitation. Another pause. Then, in the same calm, emotionless voice, she said the words that burned into my memory. "Is greater than, we decided it's best if you don't come, Olivia. You'd only ruin Claire's perfect day." For a moment, I couldn't even breathe. "Ruin?" I repeated quietly. She sighed, as if she were tired of explaining. "You and your attitude. You always make things about yourself. Claire deserves a day without tension." Her words felt like shards of glass cutting through my chest. But instead of crying or arguing, I just said softly, "Is greater than, fair enough." It was all I could manage. And somehow those two words held back everything, the heartbreak, the anger, the disbelief. We hung up, and I just sat there for a long time, staring at the blank screen of my phone. I thought of all the moments I'd tried to make them proud. How many times I'd been the one standing in the corner at family gatherings, invisible beside my perfect sister. Claire was always the golden one, the one who could do no wrong. And me? I was the shadow no one wanted to acknowledge. I opened the family group chat a few minutes later. My heart pounded as I scrolled through message after message, wedding plans, menu tastings, dress fittings. Photos of my parents trying on elegant outfits, my aunts gushing about the venue, everyone counting down to the big day. Not a single person noticed my absence. Not one word from anyone asking if I'd be there. I stared at the screen until my eyes blurred. Then I put the phone down and walked to the kitchen. I poured myself a glass of wine, the red color catching the light. If this had happened years ago, I might have cried. I might have begged them to include me. But that night, something in me shifted. The pain didn't vanish, it changed. It became cold, steady, quiet. I raised my glass to the empty room and whispered, "Is greater than, here's to your perfect day." Then I smiled. Because for the first time in my life, I wasn't going to chase their approval. If they didn't want me at their table, I'd build my own. And one day soon, they'd see what they chose to leave behind. The morning after that phone call, I woke up with a strange stillness in my chest, the kind that comes after a storm, when the air is too quiet, too heavy. I sat by the window, watching the city wake up, and thought about everything that had led me here to being the daughter who wasn't even worth an invitation. It wasn't the first time my family had made me feel like an outsider. It started long before the wedding. Ever since we were kids, Claire had been the golden one. The pretty, charming, soft-spoken daughter who everyone adored. She could say the simplest thing, and our parents would look at her like she'd solved world hunger. Me? I was the one who asked too many questions, who wanted too much independence, who talked back. When I was 16, I won a citywide art contest. I came home beaming, holding the certificate like it was treasure. Mom barely looked up from her phone. "That's nice, dear. Did Claire tell you she's been chosen for the school play?" I remember standing there, holding my prize, smiling like it didn't hurt. It was always that way. Every achievement of mine was quietly brushed aside, while every tiny success of Claire's was celebrated like a miracle. By the time we were adults, I had learned to stop expecting anything. I poured myself into work instead. I built my design studio from scratch, worked sleepless nights, and even got featured in a local magazine. My parents didn't call. But when Claire opened a small art shop, they sent flowers, posted about it online, and threw her a party. Still, I stayed silent. I told myself it didn't matter. But when they cut me out of her wedding, that was different. That wasn't just neglect, that was rejection. Later that week, I met up with Noelle, my best friend since university. She was a photographer, wild, free-spirited, the kind of person who carried light wherever she went. We sat by the cafe window, sipping coffee as I told her everything. She didn't interrupt. She just watched me, eyes steady, letting me pour out years of quiet pain. When I finally stopped, she leaned forward and said softly, "Is greater than, Liv, you've spent your whole life waiting for them to see you. Maybe it's time you stop waiting." I frowned. "You make it sound easy." "It's not easy," she said, smiling faintly. "But peace never is. You don't need their stage to shine. You can build your own." Her words stayed with me all night. When I got home, I couldn't sleep. I sat at my desk, scrolling through old folders on my laptop. That's when I found a file named Paris, Personal Dream. I opened it, and my heart softened. Years ago, I designed a concept for a small, elegant wedding chapel in Paris. It wasn't for anyone specific, just something I dreamed of. I'd sketched every detail. The arched windows, the candlelight reflecting off white marble, the roses lining the balcony. Back then, it was just fantasy. But as I stared at those designs, something stirred inside me. A thought I couldn't ignore. What if I didn't need their approval to celebrate love, my love for life, for beauty, for peace? What if I could turn their rejection into something powerful, something beautiful? I leaned back in my chair, smiling to myself for the first time in days. Maybe Noelle was right. Maybe the best way to respond wasn't to shout or beg, but to live in a way that made them question why they ever overlooked me. As the city lights flickered outside my window, I made a quiet decision. If they didn't want me at the wedding, that was fine. I would create my own story, one that didn't need an invitation to begin. And this time, the world would see it. I landed in Paris on a cloudy Tuesday morning, the kind of day that felt both calm and alive at the same time. As the plane touched down, I looked out the window and saw the city stretching beneath me, golden rooftops, winding streets, and that quiet magic that made Paris feel like a dream that refused to end. It had been 3 weeks since the phone call with my mother. I hadn't spoken to anyone in my family since then. Not a text, not a word. The wedding was only days away now, but I was thousands of miles away, standing on foreign ground, breathing air that felt like freedom. Noelle met me at the airport, waving a small camera bag in one hand and a croissant in the other. "Ready to make some memories?" she said, grinning. I laughed softly. "I thought we were just taking pictures." "Oh, we are," she said, slinging her arm around me. "But we're also making a statement, whether you realize it or not." We drove through the city to a small apartment overlooking the Seine. The light filtered through sheer curtains, touching the walls in soft gold. I stood by the balcony, watching people walk by, strangers, carefree and content. For the first time in a long time, I felt weightless. That night, Noelle spread her notes and photos across the table. "So," she began, "about this shoot. You said you wanted something elegant, simple, and real." "Yes," I said quietly. "Not a fantasy, something that shows peace. Strength, maybe." She nodded. "Then Paris is perfect for you." The next few days passed like a blur. We explored the city with her camera always ready. She took pictures of me at cafes, near fountains, in quiet gardens. Nothing posed, nothing fake. Just real moments, laughter, reflection, freedom. Then came the idea that changed everything. Noelle found a small wedding boutique tucked between two old bookstores. She begged me to try on a gown for art, she said. I resisted at first, but she insisted, and when I finally stepped into the dress, something inside me shifted. It wasn't about pretending to be a bride. It was about claiming something I'd never been given, the right to feel beautiful without someone else's approval. I stood in front of the mirror, the silk fabric catching the light, and for a moment, I didn't see the forgotten daughter anymore. I saw a woman who had survived the quiet cruelty of being overlooked and was still standing. The next morning, we took the dress to a small chapel by the river, a place I'd once seen in my designs. The old priest who managed it smiled warmly when Noelle explained our idea. "Ah, a wedding to the self," he said with a twinkle in his eye. "Paris loves love in all its forms." I walked down the small aisle alone, holding a single white rose. There was no music, no audience, just the sound of birds outside and the soft click of Noelle's camera. In that moment, I wasn't lonely, I wasn't bitter, I felt whole. After the shoot, we wandered through the streets laughing, eating macarons, and taking photos by the river. It felt like the world had opened its arms to me gently, without judgment. That night, as I looked out from the balcony of our apartment, the Eiffel Tower glittered against the sky. My phone buzzed with family updates, photos from the wedding preparations, the endless talk of perfection and glamour. I didn't open them. Instead, I turned off my phone and whispered to myself, "Is greater than perfection looks different from up here." I didn't realize it yet, but those photos, the ones Noelle had taken, were about to travel farther than I ever had. And soon, the very people who once excluded me would see them. When I returned home from Paris, I carried no souvenirs, just peace and a small flash drive filled with photos that captured a part of me I didn't know existed. Noelle had done her magic. Each picture told a story not of revenge, but of rediscovery. A woman standing in white by the Seine, smiling softly as the wind danced with her hair. Another of me holding a rose, looking straight into the camera, not begging to be seen but daring anyone to look away. A week passed quietly. I went back to work at my studio, designing interiors, answering client calls, and pretending my life hadn't changed. But Noelle had other plans. One evening, she called me, her voice practically glowing through the phone. "Liv, can I post a few of the photos on my photography page? They're too beautiful to keep hidden." I hesitated. "They're personal, Noelle." "I know, but they might inspire someone. You don't have to tag yourself. Let them see what freedom looks like." After a moment, I sighed. "Fine, just a few." She squealed and hung up before I could change my mind. The next morning, the world was different. It started with a few comments. "This is stunning. Who is she? This feels powerful." Then more. By afternoon, the post had thousands of likes. By evening, it had crossed 1 million views. End quote. People from everywhere were sharing my photos with captions like, "A woman who chose herself." Noelle called me again, half laughing, half screaming. "You've gone viral, Liv. The photos are everywhere. Pinterest, Instagram, even fashion blogs. Someone said it's the most beautiful shoot they've seen this year." I didn't know whether to laugh or cry. The same face that my family had dismissed, ignored, and forgotten was now being admired by strangers around the world. Messages started flooding in from women who said they felt seen through those photos, women who'd been left out, overlooked, or made to feel like they weren't enough. For the first time, I wasn't invisible. But the best part came 3 days later. My phone rang early in the morning, my mother's name flashing on the screen. For a second, I thought of ignoring it. But curiosity won. I answered. Her tone was shaky. "Olivia, why didn't you tell us? Your photos are everywhere. People think you're married. What is this nonsense?" I leaned back in my chair. A calmness in my chest I'd never felt before. "It's not nonsense, Mom, it's me." She sighed, almost whispering. "You embarrassed us. Claire's friends have been calling all morning, asking questions." I smiled faintly, though she couldn't see it. "You told me I'd ruin her perfect day," I said quietly. "So I made my own." The silence that followed was long and heavy. I could almost hear her trying to form words, trying to understand how the daughter she dismissed had become the woman the world was celebrating. That evening, I opened social media again. My photos had been shared by brands, photographers, and even a popular magazine that wrote, "This woman's self-love wedding in Paris redefines beauty." My inbox filled with collaboration offers, invitations to interviews, messages from people saying they admired my strength. It was surreal, like the universe had finally turned its face toward me. Noelle came over with champagne. "You know," she said, laughing, "they'll probably frame your photos in galleries before they ever frame one of Claire's." I chuckled. "I don't need that. I already have what I wanted." She tilted her head. "What's that?" "Peace." We clinked glasses, and I realized it wasn't fame or validation that felt good. It was knowing I didn't need anyone's permission to be proud of myself. But deep down, I knew this wasn't the end. Because for my family, and especially for Claire, the story was only beginning to unravel. The first time I saw Claire after everything went viral, she didn't look like the radiant bride I remembered from the photos. She showed up at my studio 2 weeks after the wedding, wearing oversized sunglasses and a nervous smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. I was reviewing sketches for a client when my assistant quietly whispered, "There's someone here to see you." I turned, and there she was, my sister, standing in the doorway like she wasn't sure she was welcome. "Olivia," she said softly. Her voice trembled, and for a moment, I almost didn't recognize her. She looked smaller somehow, not physically, but in spirit. I gestured toward the seat across from me. "You can sit." She hesitated, then sat down. There was a long silence. Only the faint hum of the air conditioner filled the room. Finally, she spoke. "I owe you an apology." I leaned back in my chair, crossing my arms. "For what exactly?" She looked down, fidgeting with her hands. "For everything. For not standing up for you. For letting Mom and Dad treat you like you didn't matter." Her voice cracked slightly. "I thought the wedding would make me happy, but it didn't. Everything felt forced, the smiles, the speeches, even the dress. And then, while we were still on our honeymoon, your photos started spreading everywhere." I said nothing, letting her talk. She took a shaky breath. "Everyone kept showing me your pictures. People were saying how beautiful and graceful you looked. I tried to ignore it, but I couldn't. I kept staring at them. You looked so peaceful, Liv. I can't remember the last time I felt that way." Her eyes glistened with tears, and for once, she wasn't the golden sister or the family's favorite. She was just Claire, lost and human. "I didn't post those photos to hurt you," I said quietly. "I just wanted to do something for myself, something that didn't depend on anyone's approval." "I know," she whispered. "And maybe that's what hurts the most. You didn't need us. You found happiness on your own." She looked up at me then, eyes red but honest. "Mom's been upset. She doesn't say it, but I think your photos embarrassed her, not because of what you did, but because they showed her what she never gave you." I let out a soft breath. For years, I'd dreamed of hearing words like that, an apology, an admission, anything that proved I wasn't invisible. And now that they were finally here, I didn't feel anger or pride, just peace. I stood and walked to the window, watching the city traffic move below. "You know," I said, "for so long I tried to be the daughter they wanted. I tried to make them proud, but they never saw me. It took losing them to finally see myself." Claire stood too, her voice breaking. "You look genuinely happy, Olivia. I don't even know what that feels like anymore." I turned to her, offering a faint smile. "You could, if you stopped trying to please them." She looked at me for a long time before nodding slowly. Then she left, quietly, without another word. When the door closed behind her, I sat back down at my desk. I felt no triumph, no victory, just a calm stillness. That night, I walked through the park near my apartment. The air was cool, the sky brushed with soft orange light as the sun went down. I thought about everything, the rejection, the silence, the journey, the peace. My phone buzzed in my hand, a new message from Noelle. It was one of the Paris photos, me standing on that balcony, smiling at the horizon. Underneath, she'd written, "Is greater than, you didn't just take photos, you told a story." I smiled, saving the picture. The next day, I finally posted it on my own page with a short caption. "Is greater than, they wanted perfection, I chose peace." And as I watched the comments pour in, not of praise but of connection, I knew something had changed forever. I wasn't the forgotten daughter anymore. I was the woman who finally chose herself. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe for more.